And I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you for coming tonight. Our second is an open public forum we always have, so do we want somebody to say something? And at an open forum, we can't talk back, so you can say anything you want. So. All right then, we don't have it. We're going to approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion for that.
Jan, second.
I'll second it.
Dave. Looks like we have an agenda to follow. Consent agenda.
I think you need to take a vote on that motion.
Do what? Oh, yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I'll get you on one of these days. Number 4 on our agenda is a consent agenda. The minutes, October 11, 2016. To approve the minutes of the October 11, 2016 City Council meeting as presented. Everybody looked at it? Then let's go with a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve that.
Dave?
I'll second.
Jamie? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Okay. Number 5 on our agenda. Resolution number 2016-46, preliminary plat of Granite Landing, 4th edition. Okay. What do we, Planning Commission was involved with this then, or?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so there's a public hearing in front of the Planning Commission on October 19th,
Okay.
in which I'll, with the replatting or the platting of that, and questions were addressed at that time. And at that time, the Planning Commission did approve of the replatting of the Granite Landing 4th edition there.
Okay.
Yep.
Planning Commission? Everything's
Yep.
okay?
Yep, so as each parcel that they've been selling in Granite Landing, they do an individual plat.
Okay.
And so this would be for that particular piece.
For that, over there?
Yep,
Okay.
on the north side of Maine.
North, close to the bridge, that part, town.
Correct.
North of the river. Okay.
There will be one other piece that remains on the north side of Maine that's not part of this.
Okay. But the Planning Commission was okay?
Yes, we
Then,
did the recommendation.
All right. Recommendation is to approve resolution number 2016-46, a resolution approving the preliminary plat of Granite Landing, 4th edition. I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Dave?
I'll second.
Jan? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Ayes have it. Number 6 is resolution number 2016-47, final plat of Granite Landing, 4th edition.
Same on this, we request the approval
Okay.
of the final plat.
Planning Commission, we're running with it again?
Yes.
All right. Okay, then the recommendation to approve resolution number 2016-47, a resolution approving the final plat of Granite Landing, 4th edition. I am looking for a motion.
I'll make that motion again.
Dave?
And I'll second.
And second. All in favor? Aye. Ayes have it. Okay, number 7. Ordinance number 349, rezoning Granite Landing, 4th edition. Ken?
And again, we request to rezone that to combine the 2 separate classifications into the single R3 high-density residential.
Again, this one was presented to Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission voted in recommendation to approve.
All right. Any other questions? Okay. So the recommendation is to approve ordinance number 349, an ordinance amending the City of Cold Spring zoning map by changing the zoning of Lot 1, Block 1 of Granite Landing, 4th edition from the combination of Riverfront and C1 downtown commercial to R3 high-density residential. RF. What is that?
Stands for Riverfront.
Okay, riverfront then. All right, looking for a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Dave, second one?
I'll second.
Jan? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Looks like you have it.
Thank you, Council. Mayor?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, number 8 on our agenda is the assessment hearing of the SAH County Road 2 Improvement Project. And we're looking at what time? 6:35? No? 6:36? We will open the hearing. Presentation of specific, do I read that now? Okay. Presentation of a specific project, cost assessment information. Brian Lindgren, engineer. Explanation of general assessment information. Bridget Murphy, city administrator. Comments and questions from the city council. Mayor calls for questions and testimony from the audience. So we'll start with that and then we'll ask them to come in. All right. Mr. Ryan?
Mr. Mayor and Council. All right, tonight, for those of you who don't know, my name is Brian Lynch and I'm the city engineer for Cold Spring. Worked with the city now the past couple years on the reconstruction of County Road 2 or Red River Avenue, so it's been a long process. As you can see, we're finally starting to wrap things up, and so the process we go through is initially we do a improvement hearing where we look at the preliminary assessments, we look at ahead of time what we think it's going to cost, how the assessments are divvied out, what the city pays, etc. After that's approved, we design the project, move forward to bidding, construction, and then when we get into the fall, we then have the assessment hearing. So this is part of the Minnesota State Statute 429. It's the state law that allows the city to assess benefiting properties on the project. So we can go through here real quick. If you're all right, I'll dim the lights here so you can see a little better. Tonight we're just going to look at the project overview, a couple of pictures, then get into some of the project financing, and then talk about the assessments a little bit. If you're not familiar, we all are pretty familiar with where the project is, highlighted in red. Red River Avenue from Highway 23 up to about River Oaks Drive, and the old Y intersection that has been replaced with roundabout. On this project, and we'll get into it a little as well, this was a joint project between the city and Stearns County. Stearns County had the roadway itself, so from back of curb to back of curb. Those were costs that they covered, and that included the roundabout. The city had costs outside of the curb, so sidewalk or some of the side streets, as well as the utilities. Given the opportunity that the county was going to replace the roadway surface, we decided that we did a very in-depth look at the utilities on here, deciding which ones needed repair and replacement and which ones didn't. And then in addition to that, we had probably a year's worth of discussion on streetscaping. So we incorporated streetscape and streetlights into the project. Those are all city costs. I won't stop too long on these, just to give you a little idea of what this is, how we lay the project out from Highway 23 heading north through the roundabout. So you can kind of see, gives you a little idea where the roundabout sits in relation to where the old roadway used to be. Just a couple of pictures looking at what the roadway used to look like. We had very deteriorated roadway surface. We were in there patching a lot. That definitely needed an overhaul. Down here is a look at the new surface. It's a bituminous roadway for the majority of the project. From about Brewery Creek up to the roundabout and through the roundabout is concrete. That was done because of the truck traffic in that area. Now, those were all Stearns County costs, but that's why there's a difference on the project, is because the brewery up handled a lot more trucks. Trucks tend to do a lot more damage to an asphalt pavement. So we went with concrete instead there. Through the majority of the project, we did narrow the roadway a little. Through the main part, I guess through the core downtown, we narrowed it about 4 feet total, 2 feet on either side. That still gave us 2 10-foot parking lanes, 2 12-foot driving lanes, and a center/dedicated turn lane in the middle at 12 feet. So at times it's a shared turn lane where both sides can use it as a left turn. As you get up towards the stoplight, it becomes a dedicated left turn lane at the stoplight. So again, just a couple more views of it. By getting those extra 2 feet, we were able to go with a little bigger boulevard. It gave us more room to put trees. It just gives you a more maintainable surface as well. The more grass we can put in the boulevard, the more easily it's maintained. And really the roadway, how it sat before, was way too wide for 2 lanes with no striping and no turn lanes. We had a little comments from people that had come from out of town that thought sometimes it was a 4-lane because it was so wide. So now, even though it's a little narrower, we have a lot more control on it because we have marked turn lanes and marked parking lanes. One of the things early on we were able to achieve with this road is that we kept it as a 2-lane roadway with the turn lane. At one point, the traffic volumes were indicating that it would have to be a 4-lane roadway, in which case we would have lost our parking. It would have been a lot busier. It would have been a bad situation for the city. So the city, working with the county, looking at some of the changed traffic volumes, we were able to drop it down to a 2-lane roadway with the turn lane. That's a big win for the city. We didn't want a 4-lane roadway running right through downtown. This allowed us to keep all of our parking in an effort to help keep the businesses downtown viable. One of the centerpieces is the roundabout on the north end. I don't know how many folks have driven through it. It seems to be operating very well. It's a little bit bigger than some you've seen before. The size on it is there to accommodate the truck traffic. We knew that there's a lot of trucks from the brewery. We wanted to make sure that they could easily navigate the roundabout. For those of you not familiar, this center area is designed to be there. It's designed to be used by trucks when they are too big to get through the roundabout. The back wheels of the trailer actually ride up on this. We call it a truck apron. So if you ever see that in a roundabout, that's designed in, because what it allows us to do is keep the size right for cars, but still let trucks get through. And just a couple other shots of looking northwest, and then again looking down Red River to the south. So that's the end of the fun part. Getting into the project financing. So our construction cost came in at about $2.875 million. So that's all of the things it took to do it. It's the construction labor, the materials, design, observation, surveying, administration, bonding, everything that came with the project on the city's side. So now this does not include the county's cost, it's just the city's cost. We had land acquisition at about $320,000. We had to take 3 properties in the area of the roundabout in order to accommodate fitting it in there, as well as various other right-of-way, temporary easements, etc. throughout the project. This cost represents half of the total land acquisition cost. So we split that with Stearns County. So that brings our total cost to just under $3.2 million on the city's cost for the project. So there's a couple ways we pay for this. One of them is, and why everyone is here, is for assessments. Benefiting properties are assessed according to the city's policy. So the city has an assessment policy. We follow that policy when we're putting the assessments together. It is always the council's prerogative. If they would like to change something, they can do that. And the assessment policy, we do our best to apply it in the manner that it's provided to us, that the city provides. Stearns County, I said, covered a lot of the roadway costs. There was a number of split costs with them as well. And then the remainder of it, the city bonds. So essentially, we take out a loan for the remainder of that project cost. So the way we figured the assessments for items like water main, sewer main, street, we look at assessable footage and we look at the adjusted front footage. So what we do is we take the front of the lot and the back of the lot and we average them. What that does, and we don't have any real extremes here, but for example, you're in a cul-de-sac. The houses around the cul-de-sac itself have a very narrow front and a very wide back. So it would be unfair to the rest of the project to only assess those people based on their actual frontage. They may only have 30 feet of frontage, but it may be 150 in the back. But they're receiving the same benefit as everyone else. So the idea there is we average it out and trying to make it as fair to everyone as possible. So we do an adjusted front footage. Now obviously that's an extreme example. We also have water and sewer service items. Those are measured by each. So for example, a house, if we replace the water and sewer service, they get an assessment of one each for water and sewer. One of the unique ones in here is streetscape. We have a lot of discussion on this at the council level ahead of the project. And so streetscape is being assessed to properties from Highway 23 to First Street North. So then the way we come up with the amount is the project costs for that particular item. So for example, water main, we bring all the costs in that it takes to put in the water main. Then we divide that by the total assessable footage, which we calculated above here. And that then determines the rate. So we come up with a per foot rate. And that's how we then apply that back to all the properties based on their adjusted front footage, multiplied by the rate, becomes their assessment for that particular item. And the last thing we do is we apply a discount to the improvement costs. On a number of the items, the city ends up taking the majority of that cost. So our typical split is a 65-35, meaning the city pays 65% of the cost, the property owner pays 35% of that cost. The two things that differ there, so that applies to everything. Other than residential water and sewer, the city splits 50-50 with the property owner. The reason for this is that residential service line from the main in the street to their house is technically owned by the homeowner. They own under the street. But it's in the city's best interest to replace that line when we're coming through and digging up the street, because if it fails, we don't want to have to dig the street up and have a patch. And it's going to cost the homeowner a lot more money in the end. So that one we split 50-50 as an incentive to the residential property owners, 1 and 2 family, to get those replaced. On the commercial or business or industrial side of things, anything other than a 1 or 2 family residential, those service costs are assessed 100% to the property owner. So there's no discount applied to them. You guys have this in more detail as well, but this is just a breakout. So for example, let's look at lateral water main. So lateral water mains are our main that's out in the street. The total cost for that, all of the items related to it, pipe and valves and fittings and everything that goes with it, was $482,000. We had 4,768 accessible footage. That's basically 4,700 feet of property that's receiving benefit from that water main. So you take the 482,000 divided by the 4,700, we come up with a cost of roughly a little bit over $101 per foot. So for every foot of water main, that's what it cost for us to put it in. We apply that discount, that 65% discount. So the city pays 65, the homeowner 35. So the property owner then pays on their assessments $35 a foot. Takes into account that discount. And we do this for all of the items. So you can see, for example, these commercial services down here, building connections, these are larger services. The brewery, we did a significant amount of work at the brewery in order to upgrade. They had several lines that crossed Red River, so that's why they ended up having a category down here all their own. Those are assessed at 0%, and these residentials are at 50%. Everything else is at 65-35, except for DLB streetscaping. We actually did some additional trees over by the Snap Fitness building. Worked with Lynn, and she agreed that she wanted, those were extra to the project, so she agreed to pay those at full cost. And then streetscaping, we said from 23 up to First Street North. There happens to be 2 residential properties within that stretch, and at council direction, we were not going to assess those residential properties. So that's why there's a separate category for streetscape in core downtown, but it's residential. It's a 100% discount. You get assessed at $0 a foot. We had to do that to carry the numbers through for the purposes of figuring out this per footage rate, but that's why there's 2 different for streetscape. Here we're looking at the estimated revenues that we're going to generate, that the city will generate from the assessments. So again, we have all the same categories, same rates. So over here on lateral water, we have that 101, the same footage, the same discount. And when we actually multiply all these across, the $101 a foot times the 4,700 feet times the discount, we're taking the discount away, so it'd actually be times 0.35. We come up with a total of $169,000. That's what the city will generate for that one item on assessment. So the total assessments for water main is the $169,000. We add those up, we get $976,000 in assessment revenue that the city is bringing in. So we look at our total project costs of the 2.875 plus the land acquisition, subtract out. So these are costs the city has to pay right here. We take away what the city is getting back in assessments at the $976,000 for a total city expense of about $2.22 million. And this comes to about a 30% of the project is being assessed. We look at this right here and what the total cost is. So what we're here for tonight is to talk about the assessments and ultimately that the city council adopts the assessment roll. After the assessment roll is adopted, any or all portions of that assessment can be paid by the property owner without interest charges up to 30 days after, if it gets adopted tonight, up to 30 days after tonight. The unpaid assessments will go to the county assessor, and then they go on the property taxes for the property. So assessments are payable over 15 years. Typically, we've done 10 years in the past. Because of the larger nature of this project and everything with it, we looked at a 15-year bond instead of a 10-year. At a rate of 3.75, this would be the rate at which the assessments are charged. And then any assessments on it would show up on the May 2017 property tax statement. Just a couple of pictures yet, ended on a little happier note. had a flag raising. We were able to take the flagpole that was at the intersection. It was an Eagle Scout project. We were able to salvage that flagpole and then put it back in the center of the roundabout. So a month or two back, we had the Legion came, we did flag raising. If you drive up at night, we do have lights on it. It looks really nice coming up the hill. Picture of the groundbreaking, and then the columns. This is 23 down here. This is Red River. You probably have seen the columns that are there. The signs are being fabricated as we speak, so they'll be coming out and getting installed yet this fall. That's all I have for the presentation. If there's any questions,
Any questions we need to ask?
Do you know when the fencing is going to go up on the Holiday and the Super America sides?
It's probably going to be in November if we're lucky here. They did come and drill the piers or the footings for them, but they have fabrication and things left. So it kind of had to be at the end because of everything else that was going on there. If it doesn't make it this fall, it will be first thing in the spring. We're also looking at getting the plants are going to come in the spring. It didn't make sense to bring them in right now.
The signs, are they gonna be moved around up here, or what's going
The
on?
one in front of the light pole?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we've caught that already and it's in the process of being worked on.
Okay, they are working on it?
Yes.
Okay.
And then another layer of tar?
Yes, good point. So in the spring, there's 2 layers of asphalt on the road right now. In the spring, we'll come back and put the 3rd one. You'll notice there's a lip at the curb. And the reason we do that is so that if there's any freeze-thaw settlement in all the trenches, since we dug pipes all over in here and we do our best to get compaction, if there's any issues, it'll show up in the spring. And that gives us a chance to fix those areas ahead of the final lift, so it's nice and smooth.
Any other questions?
No.
Okay, Bridget, or do you want to explain the general assessment information, or?
Sure, I'll add a little. Brian had some on his
Those two, okay.
there.
Brian, you want to turn on some light, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, there.
Okay. The partial payments are only allowed in this 30-day window that, from the time of adoption, 30 days. Otherwise, the county does not allow for partial payments. So if you're going to pay it and want to pay it in full in a different year, you'll have to do that, whatever the remaining balance is, by November 15th, so that the next year's interest isn't calculated on your payment. If you do want...
In that 30 days, is the payment made here?
Yes, payment
Okay.
could be made here in that 30 days. It could be a full or partial, as Brian said. If later on you want to pay it off, you can pay it either here or at the county. We prefer here because then the city gets the money as opposed to waiting until the county sends us our semi-annual tax payment. And I think Brian said all of that. But I do want the balance. So when you have a balance, interest is calculated on that balance. Your payments, so over 15 years, whatever your assessment is divided into 15 equal parts. As you pay that, your balance goes down, so your interest each year is on that new balance, not on the original assessed amount. So your interest and your principal both go down at the same time. And that's it.
Any more questions? Questions? Okay, Bill?
I just do have a question for Brian. The sharp edge where the curve meets the tar now. I've hit that a couple of 3 times already, and it's very sharp. Should you have a little bit of a curve of tar there to prevent tires from getting damaged?
We typically don't, because once we get the next lift of pavement on, we want that straight edge there. So it's just a temporary thing until we pave in the spring.
You haven't had much damage in previous.
I don't think we have.
Bill, did you get answered? Okay. Still some comments, questions? Yes, sir?
I could have asked you this earlier, but I didn't get a chance. I live at 319 2nd Street. I think you know we reconnected our sewer line. It used to go to Red River, and now it goes to 2nd Street. Is my assessment based on connection to Second Street or based on Red Rivers?
You're talking for the sewer service itself?
Sewer service, yeah.
The sewer service is just a per each, so we just added, we looked at it as another one in the project. It didn't, even though you're technically connected to Second, it was part of our project because it's right in that intersection. So you're being assessed for that sewer service, because we did put in a new service in order for you to do that.
But it does go to the main on Second Street?
It does go to the main on Second Street, yes.
So there's always that calculation?
Correct. And there is, we do have to, with the project, we have to work on the side streets as well to tie in. So those costs to tie into the side streets are all included with this project. It's just part of the cost of doing business and doing a project.
Your question answered?
It is. I just, it's comment on, I commend the city on the project. I think it was a good project, and
Okay.
I think the assessments are fair, and it's nice to see the city moving forward and making that big improvement.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, more questions, more comments?
Mr. Mayor, I'm just trying to get a clarification.
Yes.
Is this question's only relevant to the specific project, the field portion of it, or is it also for the assessments themselves? 'Cause we had called
Yeah,
them-
both. I think we're going to incorporate both. Mr. Willenbring, what are you trying to get to? Maybe I can help you
Want
on.
to hear, or do we want to test?
Well, you're on, but we have some gals that are going to be first called.
I'll
Because,
patiently wait.
yeah, I'm just asking for the other questions and stuff to finish that. And I'm going to ask 3 times. Okay? Yes, sir?
Dave, you had made a comment about the signs in front of the lights. Is that something that, like we've got one down just past my place, it's 104. It's the Frogtown in front of that light. Are those the ones that are going to be moved?
Is that one going to be moved also on the east side?
If it's a shorter one, I don't.
Yeah, there's one there, and there's also one in front of the Becknell dentist office. That one actually is blocking the light. I mean, they're right up next to the light where that doesn't shine forward on that part of it.
Yeah, I talked to the county today, and they're gonna move them. They might end up being a little closer, to the intersection where you gotta turn, but it is what it is with the street lighting there. They'll just look a lot nicer.
Yeah, because I know the one with Frogtown, that one actually really blocks. I mean, our driveway has no light at all anymore where it did because it was up on the pole.
Yep, and that's gonna, the Frogtown sign's gonna come off of the 30-mile-per-hour sign will probably stay there, because that's got a 7-foot minimum, and that should be below the light, and it should bring the light back out. But the Frogtown sign will head to the south, across the Blue Creek.
So it'll be right next to our driveway?
No, there's
There's the other way. We're closer to where the turn where it's supposed to be.
Yeah. Oh, that one will go to the north, and the one on the west side of the road will go to the south.
Okay, 'cause
Yeah, the one on your side,
It's going to go north.
Alan, is going to go north.
So it'll be back. It'll be
It'll
back
be
on.
toward the intersection up there.
Okay.
Okay.
The one across the road will be going south. The
All
one,
right.
yeah.
Okay. So that'll improve the lighting because it is actually kind of dark over there now.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
John, will that affect if those poles are further apart for cleaning the street, if they were closer together? Would that help, if there's too many poles, will that hinder cleaning? Snow
It's
removal?
just gonna make more of a nuisance for more grass. Like the mower on them, the leave up around them, but I don't think plowing's gonna affect anything.
All right. Okay. Then we're going to ask Lorraine Sager to come up and state her case.
Well, I'm Sharon Sager, OJ.
Oh, all
Lorraine
right.
is my mother.
Okay.
But I'm here to talk about this assessment business. Mom lives on 3rd Street, which is the only gravel road in Cold Spring. That's not a problem. The problem is on her assessment, she is being assessed for concrete walk. She's being assessed for the street. She's being assessed for street lights. There are no street lights on 3rd Street.
Keep going.
There's no, that is. Yes.
I've got you up on here. Keep going what you're being assessed for.
Okay, and she was very concerned about our water service comes through, we don't connect to water on 3rd Street. We connect to water, and that's the way that's been for 100+ years on that house. And that comes through Ray Cleave's property. Our water comes through his property. We're connected with his house.
Okay.
We have our own water main, or our own meter, but our water service comes through their house.
Okay.
And so
Keep going.
I don't know how much more that,
Our sewer goes,
which one? Come up here.
our sewer goes, that again comes across, our house originally was there like 100 years ago, and then the other houses, like Soldiers and Soldners and Cleaves, were built up after our house. And so they were built on top of our access to the waters and sewers, so that was escrowed into the house that they would never have to be moved. And so, so our water, our sewer actually comes right by, I don't know if some of you are familiar with Cleve's garage, and it goes kind of right behind the garage and up onto his property, and his comes in, and then right on the edge of 3rd Street, it becomes one into the main. And so, but that's quite a ways from our actual property where it actually divides into the common 3rd Street. And so because she's so far back, our property, 2nd Street actually, or 3rd Street North, is
We have about 20 feet of frontage on
No.
3rd Street
How
North.
many feet do you think 3rd Street is long?
It was actually closed off on one side.
Is vacated.
And the brewery side is closed off. And Cleves and us are still open, and I think it goes back as far as the golf course still, because I know he used to tease me about he'd like to swing a road around from where 3rd Street goes his way someday. We actually don't have, I mean, there's no way you would want to put a curb, lights, concrete, anything back there. We're like on a little side dirt road that just never has been completed because other people have vacated portions of it. But we still have ours open. They brought the water back because they're thinking maybe someday it might be developed, which, my mom is in the late 80s, and maybe someday I'm planning on buying the house, or I'm working on buying the house. And so I plan on staying there, but I'm also not a young spring chicken. And so perhaps someday that land will become for sale and the water might be moved by some other developer. But until that time, we plan on using the same water. We've also, when it came to actually using some of like when Cleves got the last time they had their water lines repaired, they split the bill with us. And so now we don't know are we going to be splitting it with Ray and also on 3rd Street, because that's what we're being assessed to, the whole line of the 3rd Street coming up. Because they're saying we're the only ones with access, but we're not. We're not using it. I think right now the only one is using it is actually Don. Dan's sold. I mean, he put his new lines in there. And so we just think that perhaps this should be re-looked at, and Mom doesn't have any problems with like the sanitary service, the sanitary residential service, because she feels that that's, again, maybe someday something will happen and we'll use that access. But some of these other things, for us to pay for the whole road coming up, just unreasonable. It would be like somebody living at the end of a block and having to pay for that whole block, to be brought up to their house.
Okay. So we're going to hear from the city's part of it, so we're going to ask Brian, John, or Pete to explain this, and then you will be able to let them do their part, and then we'll go back at it again.
Yeah.
All right.
give you a little idea of where we're at here, we're on County Road 2. Here's Brewery Creek. The brewery sits here. So we have Soldner's property, Eve's property, and then Tiger's property, the property we're talking about. And that, for your reference, it's 4A on the assessment sheet. So we have the mains out here. We also brought mains down the half of 3rd Street that was not vacated. The southern half has been vacated to the Soldners. The north half is not vacated. The reason we brought these back, there was previously a sewer manhole back here in order to serve these properties. The grade line here is the existing sewer. Like you mentioned, it cuts across the corner. And they're shared into here. The grade outline here is the existing water main that cuts through the Cleve household and then feeds the Sager property. Down here, what we did is we replaced the sewer as it was to continue allowing access. And since we were replacing sewer, we also brought water back. The idea then, we also provided a new sewer and water service for this parcel.
And you stopped it right at the corner. They didn't bring it all the way across.
Correct. We stopped it right at the corner, and that was in an effort to minimize costs for everyone as well. Our idea was, what we wanted to do from the city standpoint is provide them an option in the future to connect there. If something happens to this line, or we can't predict property owners down the road that would say, I don't care if there's something in the deed, I'm going to cut off your water line. We can't predict that. So it's in the city's best interest to provide a water and service, a sewer line. Even though it's technically not used now, it's there for the future. It would be, as long as we're doing the project, it's foolish to not do that at the same time. So that's why and then we have a hydrant here just because we have in order to provide a minimum size main, we need to be able to flush it. We looked at the property, and what we do is we have to look at what properties are receiving benefit. Now, this is obviously a little different situation that isn't covered in exact detail in our assessment policy. We don't have property tucked behind connected. What we did is we looked and said that the Sager property is receiving benefit from the overall project. So that's why we looked at the shorter sides of their lot. We took those averages. Just the same way as the Cleve property is if this were adjacent to Red River Avenue. So we said this property is receiving benefit from the street, from the water mains, from everything out here. This is a unique situation in how the property is accessed from a half of a right-of-way. So doing our best to apply the city's assessment policy, that's how we addressed it. And you can see if you look at 4A, that's how we took the average of these distances and then applied it as we would any other property. We also, there's other situations like this too. We had kitty corner off of 2nd. We had someone who receives water main benefit from Red River, but they aren't technically on Red River, but their service comes a roundabout way to them. So then they're assessed based on their footage as if they were on Red River because they're receiving that benefit.
So, Brian, what did it do to the Cleve? What number is the Cleve?
4. Cleve is 4.
4? What did it do to their property?
It shouldn't have changed theirs at all.
It shouldn't have changed. We would look at the Cleve property and the Sager property as independent properties.
Okay.
Theirs actually is less than ours.
Yeah, I see that.
Less than ours.
And that has to do with the amount of frontage, the footage of the property is why that's where those numbers will vary.
So the other property you were talking about, the kitty corner one on 2nd, so they got the water, but because they have a separate road frontage, if the road gets done, they get assessed on 2nd for the road and sidewalk piece of it,
Correct.
they only got assessed for the water because of the way it hooked up,
Correct.
because their access is on the other road. Okay.
Again, the criteria that we're meeting to, I guess, to satisfy us all, especially the Sagers and the city, the criteria that they have to meet is because of that water line, sewer line, a fresh new line going into it, into their property, and it is not hooked up. But that is what the city, we do. Would that be called a policy of the city, to follow that criteria with every other
I don't know that it's
structure like
necessarily
that?
a written policy, but it would be the best practice.
Best practice? Sagers, you want to add to this, say anything?
Well, I'm wondering about the concrete walk and the street lights. We don't have any of that on 3rd Street. None of it. That's all on Red River, and it's not even close to 3rd Street.
Brian?
And the reason we applied the policy the way we did is we said that in the engineer's opinion, now the council can disagree with that as well, but the engineer's opinion was that the property, even though it is off of Red River Avenue, is receiving those benefits from Red River Avenue because there are no other accesses, and this is essentially a driveway. It is a right-of-way, but it is exclusively used.
Does that part, the city own that?
Yes.
The city does own this right-of-way, correct?
That there, the city does own that,
Yes, they do.
okay. Any other explanations we need? Then I'm going to ask the council for comments, or what suggestions?
So the streetscape is not included because it's being residential.
Correct. And
It's out of
First Street
north of First Street, so it's just street lights.
Yes.
Okay. And then the,
The concrete walk, I guess that's still a question I have. What's considered they're being charged for a concrete walk? Brian, explain to me the concrete walk.
Again, the same way we looked at, we just said the property is receiving the same benefits
Okay.
because of the unique situation of where it's located, the lack of, any future assessments to upgrade this area. We looked and we said, based on our opinion, that the property was receiving the same benefits as somebody who was on Red River Avenue.
But the visual thing there is we can't see the concrete walk. I mean, that's kind of what I was getting to is visually we can't see that. And
Correct. There is no physical walk in front of theirs, but they're receiving the benefit from Red River.
Red River.
so is there a potential assessment in the future on 3rd?
There would not be, because we've dug up this section of 3rd. We replaced the gravel material that was there. There was question from the owners. They had questioned, can we put it back in asphalt? And I said, because it would be a new roadway surface, it had never previously been asphalt, it would then have to be assessed at 100%, just like a new development would be. We talked through it, and they ultimately said, no, we really don't really want that, because it would be a significantly greater cost, because it would be assessed at 100%. And a roundabout way to answer your question, I'm sorry, there would be no other improvements that we would be doing.
No, 3rd Street doesn't end at our driveway. 3rd Street goes on, all the way through all the way past our property line and beyond. It's just that I think that, I'm not sure exactly where down here it's been closed.
And I'm not exactly sure how far down.
There is a possibility it could be opened up.
I don't think it would be the city, at least, it would not be my recommendation to open this up as a through roadway, because it is only half of a right-of-way width. It's only 33 feet of right-of-way. We'd never be able to put a standard road in here unless we were to purchase back right-of-way over here. And the other question would be, I don't know that it's ever going to, I don't know where it would go.
Does it run into a creek down it?
It eventually runs into a creek over here.
So it was
No,
gridded
that's
through the
part of
city?
No,
That's
the
the
golf
golf
course.
course drainage.
Yeah.
It's
There-
not a,
yeah,
it's
the-
not a creek.
Well, there is a, there's an
Oh.
offshoot of, it is part of
It's
the
golf
drainage.
course
correct.
drainage.
Okay.
But it's still gridded on the city that it goes on to, it still goes on like she's worried about is like, does the property get sold further down? But that don't look like that's,
At least not in the future that we can see. with
but
this
that's
ever-
still staying in the city's grid though. I mean, that third?
It is.
Yeah.
Let me look
Yeah.
at the map.
The property behind you is golf course property, correct?
Yeah, but
Yes.
this is actually, we've got, those, they're like several lots in that area because, developers have talked to Mom about selling that and they wanted to develop that area. And so it's not like it could never be developed. You could have an apartment complex with, continuation of what's up north someday. So I'm not gonna say that it would never happen.
So where your house is on, that's the part that could be developed into something else?
Yeah.
Our property, this little curve here, there's a big old fat oak tree right here and our house sits right here.
Up here, not to the north, Sharon.
But
Yeah,
then
right up.
where that jagged line is, that's all your property,
Yes.
All the way
Yes.
down.
all the way
There's all
down?
Yeah, and this is the Bury parking lot.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And I
What about south, 6 and 7 there? That's-
I think that's part of Soul.
Yes,
that is
It
part of
is.
Soul,
it.
yes.
Okay.
And then
Further,
That
if you were
there
to,
is basically
this, down here, I would say this is probably where the golf course starts.
Yeah, but they had it actually is, used to be Schlungen's, and I believe that there was actually, it could have been a right-of-way down there as well.
I think it does show,
That it does come
show
out
it was
where
originally
where
lots.
Franny Peters used to live. Franny Peters' house, for those who are older like me.
Yeah, would connect.
That would have come through, there would have been over the creek, and there was an alleyway or another street, a continuation of Second, I think.
If you go straight, this would be east. North is this way.
This way,
East
yeah.
would
Yeah.
be down. If you go straight east, this would eventually run into a T-box, and then very close to the end of, I think it's Creekview Drive, the one where the townhomes are that circles around that comes off the Second. You don't quite line up, but close.
Mom said that when the property actually was sold, that this line isn't actually straight like this. The property line actually comes,
And it goes
this
at an
road
angle.
actually comes at
It's
an
a pie
angle
shape.
like this, like a pie. So it's almost at an angle. When it was sold, it was not a square. When we still have the original markers down below, and it is at an angle, and it would end up probably running to near Peters, where they used to live.
And I guess this, and I don't necessarily dispute that, this is
No.
what we got from
Yeah,
our surveyors.
and I understand you're doing exactly what you're supposed to do.
Well, the surveying, I'll just make one comment on the surveying. When they've had the surveyors out, if I go by the surveying stakes on our piece of property, there's probably 15 stakes on each corner.
Yeah,
They come up with different numbers every time they do it.
but the original ones, the old heavy metal ones in the ground. So,
Council, we need some more questions, or
Just so I'm
do I
clear,
need some comments?
your water line only runs under the house. You don't share a water line.
no, it just runs
So,
under.
okay.
Yeah.
So you have
Yeah.
the water line. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the sewer line.
No, actually, you share one.
Do we?
If we would shut Cleve's off,
No.
you wouldn't have any water.
Okay. So I guess we share one.
So,
So
Jamie,
that's
would
why
we,
if that has to switch, they'd switch and hook up on the one that's in the corner
Yes.
now?
Correct.
Okay.
If we
If-
ever
If
decide to change
if you have a
it,
spat with
yes.
the neighbor, they,
No, that's not a concern.
the question I would be asking is, shouldn't they hook up right away?
No, it's
And-
written
and
right
then-
into the,
It doesn't work that way.
purchase agreement on the house.
Oh, the way it enters your house?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
They don't have to hook up right away, but it's
Yeah.
in everyone's best interest to provide that in the event they need to.
Mom wasn't that concerned about the water coming into 3rd Street as some of the other charges that she got.
The concrete walk is
Yeah,
what,
yes,
is
The
what,
concrete walk and the street light.
Yeah, those things really bother me.
I mean, if we had the street light
But then,
right down here on the corner where 3rd Street comes into my mother's property.
No, we don't want
that.
that
That would have been a different story,
It's
but
not
we
gonna do
don't
us
have
any good.
you don't have a street light.
No. It wouldn't do any good.
Council, I'm looking for something, suggestions?
Well, I can
What
see
we
it from,
should do?
I can see it from both sides. I can see it from the
Yeah.
engineering side on how he came up with this, because that's the road, that's the access to the property, that's the access, so I can see that. But I can also see it from the personal side, which I can't see the sidewalk and I can't see the street light.
Yeah,
I
visually.
mean, I can see it
yeah.
from both standpoints.
Yeah, I can too. I can't. I
Can
can't
we
see
deduct
taking the water
something?
off or the sewer, but
Yeah. Can we do something about the concrete walk then?
How many situations like this do we have?
This is a unique situation.
So this would be one.
there is more.
There is more.
Yeah,
There's
there is
more.
another
I
one
was
up
gonna say,
here.
there's gotta be some.
First Street and 6th, used to be George Tyson's house, runs right behind Priscalla's house through their property, and then the street is one of them.
Yeah.
There's 3 or 4 of them.
Behind the
That
When,
was
uh,
ballpark to get
ballpark.
where
Do you,
Keys or
do you know Jim or goes
Felton
on
lived.
Yeah,
left it.
behind the,
private driveways?
that just.
They live down an alley though. That's an
replaced
alley
that
and
water line maybe about
I don't know how they get
25
water and
years
sewer
ago.
back right through the alley, I
Right through
suppose.
their backyard to replace it.
how about,
Well, the only,
Hey, that was not uncommon to dig a service line into a house and hook it all together.
And considering the front house and our
That-
house, they were owned by the same.
That's been talked about vacating it too.
Yeah, it makes sense.
That's
Right.
why
They lived in
Side
our
road.
house,
Yeah.
and then they built.
they built the two big white houses.
okay, we done over there?
Kind of, yeah.
Should we come to some kind of agreement with that cement? I guess that's the only thing, the sewer and the water, we can't work with that.
Sewer
The only-
water, I'm not gonna.
Work with that, but the
don't think I-
concrete walk, should we give them a reduction? No, yes?
Because I still think there's somewhat of a, and even though they don't have it right on their street, it's out there. Can we cut it in half yet? I don't know.
Well, that's what I was,
Would that,
This is at this point, it's entirely up to the council what they feel they'd like to do. You know, we did our best to interpret the assessment
yeah,
policy.
exactly.
Final decision is yours.
well, for me,
The only
it's,
thing I
What are-
know
what are
we're gonna
the-
be setting
what are the,
precedent.
right, that's the,
And
what are
that's
the
the other thing.
requirements for making an exception? What?
You know, I don't know. I'd have to get back to you on that. Because I did not know that this would be an option.
I don't know, I mean, I don't
Yeah.
wanna make an assumption.
Well, we'd have to redo the roll. So
Well, the other
the
option.
resolution is still, can be passed tonight because the resolution talks about the whole. We would just revise the roll.
I do have a question though, on the, like, the lateral water mains, is that just on like Red River Street? Or is that on the 3rd?
So the lateral water main is based on the frontage that we figure out based on the size of your property.
Okay, but that's on Red
multiplied-
River.
Well, multiplied by the rate that we come up with. The water main, this little 150 foot of water main is included with the cost of all the other water main on the project, where we, the example I gave where we lump everything together, find a rate, and then multiply that rate by how your lot is
Now,
configured.
is the lateral though, that's what runs on Red River?
It could
That's
be-
the main
it could-
sewer line?
As well as, this is what
As
also
well
be
as that.
considered a lateral.
Because
Okay,
I
because we
wouldn't
got-
want Mom to have to pay for all of 3rd Street when we have two other neighbors that are getting the sewer
Well, and
water line as well.
I understand what you're saying.
They
We're
add
not paying for it
all of that up,
individually.
right? It's all added up and then divided amongst the
By
property
everybody's
owners.
Three properties.
Yes,
No,
all
it's
the properties.
not even the three properties.
No, all the properties.
All of this cost for this line here is added to everything else and then divided between all the properties.
Before you finish that, I want you to think about your conscience and think about if that was your house back here and that you were paying as much as someone who had a nice sidewalk and nice trees in front of their house.
And a nice
And we're
street
sitting
light,
back
curb
here
and
with a
gutter.
dirt driveway coming to our house, and we don't have any of those nice things. And I want you to think, if you think it's fair that we're paying exactly the same as those guys up there. Because,
The
I
houses
mean, if
that
it
are
was your
benefiting
house,
from a paved
do you
road,
really think it's
from
fair?
curb
Really?
and gutter.
If it was really you. I want you to think about that.
Council, I think we can do something. I feel like we can do something, but we would have to have Bridget
So then
look
what
into
you need
it.
to do is,
Well, so then the reduction, are you saying the reduction applies to the city portion? Or are you saying the reduction
That would be
gets
the-
split
That would, if we,
between everybody else?
right,
there's two options. You could either, the reduction could either be taken by the city entirely. And the other thing is it's not, the other way to do it is divide it between everybody else. Now you're penalizing everybody else for the changes to their property.
Right.
Which is, I would recommend against doing that. If it were mine, I would recommend that the city would take the reduction. Or whatever theirs is reduced would be absorbed wholly by the city. And it's really that 35% that's being absorbed by the city.
Right, because we've already absorbed 65%.
So, what?
I'm willing to absorb half of the street in the concrete walk on the basis of what they said, but also I'm struggling with your property paying $5,200 for a water main. And just for an example, Soldner paying $5,300, but the house in front of you that you share a water line with is also paying. You know what I mean? And to me that I understand the logic, but it doesn't make sense to me.
To me, it makes sense because they've provided the other main.
Well, that was our doing though.
Right.
That's our own city doing for our own,
Yeah.
that is no benefit to them though at this point. We did that slowly for us. But to share a water line and get charged twice for it, which is essentially what we're doing, because we're correct, right? It's one water main. So if something happens to that water main, they're out and you're out. So somehow you guys have to come to an agreement, whatever that is, to fix that water main, right?
Yes.
So that's, so I'm willing to forego the street and concrete walk. I completely understand that. You're not on the road. I totally get that. But it also seems foolish to me that we have one water main going under one house that feeds two houses. Just out of curiosity, how many other are like that in the city of Cold Spring?
As far as waters, not, that's,
Jim?
This red house on top of this hill runs right down through this parking lot and ties in right by the land sign.
there's a bunch of sewers that are left.
Right, well, yeah, but that flows downhill, I get that. But there's not a lot of houses that share a single water line between two residences.
Not a lot.
Not a lot.
Okay, so again, I think this is an overly unique situation for what we have going on here, so I'm willing to cut them, the street and the concrete walk, considering what they're paying for the water main. I think that's fair.
Hey,
Cut it in
Dave?
half?
Dave, what you
Cut.
doing?
How much? All of it?
Did you say half, or did you?
I'm in the opinion all of it.
Okay. And I
That's-
would
we
say
can-
half, but
I'd say half, but.
on those two items.
Let's see what Fran says.
I'm gonna go half, because sooner or later, the properties 20, 30 years down are going to get sold, or something magically will happen.
Yep.
And the benefit of what's there already is going to benefit the new developer or the new people. Because I could see the Sager's house going away sometime and something else. And like she brought up before, apartment house and everything. Now, let's just say the worst case scenario or the best case scenario would be now that's good that that water line is in there.
I agree.
I mean, right now it doesn't seem like it doesn't, but if we look further, but I will.
I have one question.
Yes, you can.
Somebody could explain it to me. On her thing, it says water service, residential, sanitary, sewer service, residential. She's got charges for both of those. And then it comes down to the lateral sewer and the lateral water main and charges for them. Why 2 charges?
Brian?
There's charges for both. The lateral are considered the bigger pipes in the street.
Yeah,
out in Third or in Red River.
Okay.
The service is the smaller pipe that comes from that goes to your house. So on a sewer, it's a 4-inch pipe. On the water, it would be a 1-inch pipe.
Okay, there wasn't any sewer dug into our house, or not even.
Well,
there was no sewer replaced into our house.
No, and we don't replace into the houses. Normally, on any of these, like on, for example, on the Cleves, we replace it to the right-of-way. That's all the farther the city goes with it. It is up to the property owner if they want to do the project.
So then we're paying for it down there,
We're
the
paying
right
for
away
the
and
sewer
up there.
on.
So we have 2.
On Red River, and we're paying for the sewer and water on 3rd Street.
No, you're paying for the one down here that comes, this new one that was added to the corner of your
But
property.
we're also paying for the other one in the total cost factor.
The lateral water main is almost $5,300. And the water service residential is $1,000, almost $1,000. So that's 2 waters.
No,
She's only hooked up to the one.
They're separate. They're separate things. They aren't the same. They aren't charging for the same. One is charging for the big pipe in the street.
Right.
Because everybody is benefiting from that large pipe. The other is charging for the individual one that's coming to your property, which is this one right here.
That we aren't hooked up to.
It's correct. You're not hooked up to it, but your property has now received the benefit of this pipe being here in the event that this option goes away.
So then we have to pay. So we have to pay for both. Raise.
You're not paying for anything on
We do
raise.
have to pay for that because that's our agreement with
Is Ray paying any assessment on 3rd Street?
Ray is paying for his own water and his own sewer.
Okay, are Soldners paying for any assessment on 3rd Street?
They're paying for their own
They
water
got the
and
benefit
sewer.
of it put in down there.
They're paying for water on 3rd
Look,
Street.
I think
3rd Street's been added into the whole project. There's not a separate assessment for 3rd and Red River. It's all, the feet are lumped together.
Yeah, it's all,
I think that's
exactly.
how-
It's a large pool that all of these costs for the water and sewer go into. So we're not looking at
I can see where that would
separately
make
water
sense,
and
where you
sewer.
have your lot, your house, your lot, your house. It makes absolutely no sense when you got your lot and a house, and then the next lot here, and the water coming back, the way that was. But, I mean, we can't do anything because it was done 100+ years ago.
And that's where we were trying to right, it wasn't necessarily a wrong 100 years ago, but we're trying to give it a better situation than running through the Cleve household.
Well, it's not going to happen now with the $20,000 assessment going through.
All right, I think we have discussed it enough. What we were coming down to was half. We were going to go half on, we get back to that, half on street and concrete walk. So, and it's the consensus of the council, at least we have Jamie yet, but it's a consensus of the council to go half on the street and the concrete walk. Is that what we're going to do?
Should that be a motion, or?
I don't know. Tell me.
I would say yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then I'm going to look for a motion to go half on the concrete and half on the street. A motion I'm looking for.
I'll make that motion.
A second?
I'll second.
Jan? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Against?
Aye.
Okay. All right, it's passed. Thank you, ladies.
That was half on the street light, correct?
Pardon?
The street, that was the street lighting though, right? Not the street?
No, the street,
Street and the concrete walk.
Not the street lighting?
correct.
Yeah.
All right. And you're absorbing that under the cities.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
About $3,400.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then we got the Rocori Trail Construction Board.
Mr. Mayor and Council, let's hopefully make this short and sweet. Allow me to make my introduction. Oh, I'm blinded here. I'm Dwayne Willenbring. I happen to be one of the members of the Rocori Trails Construction Board. I might have messed up.
Nope, I just went timed out.
With me is Kevin Mooney. He's also a member of the Rocori Trails Construction Board representing Richmond. I'm representing Rockville. And we're here to just hopefully give you a little bit of background. Way back August 25th, 2015, at that point, Rena Weber was still our city administrator for the city of Rockville, and her and I were here to appeared at the council meeting at that time, again, August 25th, 2015. That was the night that you had your preliminary assessment meeting for the assessment roll, and we pleaded at that time to attempt to see if we can get that off of the assessment roll. Quite frankly, the Rocori Trails, and just a little bit of background for the benefit of people that might not know, the Rocori Trails Construction Board was created as in a joint powers agreement between the three cities. Each of the three cities have two representatives that are voters. We have a lot of people that are support group, moving right along and all of that. And another phase of our life is coming to fruition. But we do not have a taxing authority. We're merely owned by the three cities. And so that puts us in a heck of a quandary, and that was the concern that we showed at that time. It was recently brought forward at the last Rocori Trails Construction Board meeting, which was last week, Wednesday, whatever.
First Thursday of October.
Okay. And at that point, it was brought to our attention, and we were asked to come forward to speak on behalf of the Rocori Trail to see if there can be a modification. And Kevin, please chime in. Any other quick comments? I don't want to be here too late. We've got a...
Well, I mean, I was looking for an opening, wasn't finding one. You know, there's just a couple of things. Obviously, we're a joint powers organization with, you know, Cold Spring. So it's a funny situation. It's a trail. It stretches about 7 miles. We run through Wakefield Township. We run through Rockville. We run through Cold Spring. Ironically enough, it doesn't actually touch my community. It's about a mile away from my community in Richmond. So, but we're still on board with it and all that. There's a lot of opportunities for assessments on this trail. Well, let's just face it. I mean, you guys did street improvements to 14th. You could have assessed the trail at that point too. You could have assessed it behind the new Teals Market as well. So, I mean, what we want to do is, you know, we're a partnership. You know, so what we want, so with that partnership, I think sometimes we want to work together on certain issues like that. Okay. One of the things that we talked about earlier, that your engineer talked about earlier, was benefit from, you know, the improvements to Red River. Yeah, as far as the trail goes, there's not much benefit to what you did on Red River to the trail. I mean, the trail is going to have X number of users, whether you improve Red River or don't improve Red River. So there weren't many benefits to the trail itself, or really to its users. And the other thing is just goodwill. We will have trail portions running through Rockville here real soon. So the goodwill is, you know, make this assessment go away here in Cold Spring. So in the future, if Rockville decides to do a project, you know, there's a precedent set that we don't assess the trail that all three of the communities own. So we don't have to, you know, keep jumping through these hoops. There could be a point where Wakefield Township would like to assess the trail too, for some type of improvement out in their area. So I guess what we're looking for is probably precedent here. So moving ahead and in the future, the trail board, the three cities that own the trail aren't constantly assessing each other for projects in their city when it comes to this joint group, this joint board, this joint effort, so.
And if I could just add a quick footnote to what Kevin shared, and I think it's monumental, it's temporary. The ultimate goal is for us to hand it over to DNR, and it's a regional trail. So everything that we do, the 3 cities, the 6 voting members from the 3 cities are predicated on the fact that we want to eventually not own it. So the 3 cities combined will eventually not have it, and it'll be the Glacier Trail, the maintenance, and all that good stuff. So, and I
mean, at the end of the day, we understand it's not a grave amount of money. It's not. No. I mean, we're really talking about, it's about $3,000, split 3 ways between the 3 communities. It's $1,000 a community. But the concept there is setting the precedent of goodwill, that we don't tax our neighbors on a joint venture such as a trail. So that's totally up to you guys. In all, something that was said earlier, in all good conscience. I mean, what was the one you were going to use? Moral?
But whatever, yeah. Compromise is a great thing,
Yeah.
and the 3 cities have worked very closely. And my records show here that the proposed assessment moving forward is $3,021.72. I hope that that's correct and in sync with yours is. And as Kevin stated, you know, it boils down to the street talk that happens after that, if we do nothing about it, is that the city of Rockville, and I happen to be a council member out there, the city of Rockville will say, oh, we're helping pay for streetscape in our neighboring community. That's that's going to happen if we don't have movement. I can't speak on your town.
Well, and quite honestly, in Richmond, it's going to be, we spent $1,000 to improvements on Cold Spring on a trail that doesn't even touch our town. You know, I mean, it just is what it is. If you guys don't understand, the Rocori Trail only goes out to 178th Street. The remainder of the trail is State Glacial Lakes Trail. So really, the Rocori Trail corridor itself doesn't touch Richmond.
And the vision is for it, the easterly termini point would be on the 230, or County Road 138 in Rockville.
They just looked a little confused that it didn't touch Richmond.
Yeah.
And it doesn't.
It doesn't.
Through Richmond.
It doesn't.
All right.
It runs through Richmond, but
I
at that
didn't-
point, it's not the
Train
Rocori
changes
Trail.
over.
It's a state trail.
Changed over there. And,
Yeah.
Okay, and I think that is the case. We don't want to belabor the point. It's
Yeah, we don't need
night
to
is
beat
young
you up
and-
on it. That's just, that's what the trail board is discussed
Advocating.
at our last meeting, and that's what we're here to convey to you. So you can do with it what you wish, but you know, that's our argument.
And I think it would be in the methodology of the assessment of how you come up with, you know, the water, the sewer, all these, it's complicated.
I mean, we're only being charged for basically streetscape. We get that lighting and you know, beautification, so, you know.
Not water. Okay,
Yeah.
anything else, Kev?
That's nothing else from us.
Thank you for allowing us to.
You guys got any questions? Any comments?
No. Okay.
How'd we do? You'll find out.
On that discussion, I have a few things to ask. Is when the trail board, and since I'm not on the board and I really didn't get involved with it, didn't Cold Spring also and Richmond help Rockville, and Cold Spring and Richmond help Cold Spring, and Cold Spring and Richmond, Rockville help Richmond? Didn't the funds go to all of them? I mean,
Each city everything splits a third. So each community pays a third in, like, each community would put 10,000 in for the expenses, and then they'd each, so each community shares it.
So
a third.
So then if they, how am I going to say that? At Rockville, if they got to cross the trail 138, and it costs, I'm just going to throw this out there, and it costs $10,000-15,000. Okay, who takes that cost in Rockville? Does Cold Spring, Richmond help share that cost? Okay.
We would, yeah, it's split 3 ways.
So the pot, I'm understanding, the pot is done 3 ways, right? Is that what? I guess what I'm getting to is, if we're paying for one of that, I'm asking Rockville and Richmond to each pay $1,000. Would that be? Am I out of line to ask that?
I don't know if I call it out of line, but I think what they're trying to get at is that the city made the improvements to a trail that's going through there that's already been paid for. Essentially, it's a nonprofit organization, for lack of a better word. whether we forego it and the city covers it or they end up paying for it, it's $3,000 less they can put into the trail, the organization itself.
It's
So-
kind of,
That's
why
part of
bother
it, yeah.
assessing it when they go through Rockville? If Rockville won't assess, then,
Right.
I
yeah,
mean, we
yeah.
still have to share the trail costs, but they're not gonna do assessments.
Right.
When it goes through there either. Because
Okay.
it's coming out of the same pockets.
Yeah.
So, guys are thinking, what was this?
Wipe it off.
That's my thought.
Just, yeah, absorb it. And I think we actually talked about that several months ago, that it's such a low cost when we got to the,
What
Yeah.
this?
yeah, it wasn't gonna be an issue for us.
Way back when.
Yeah.
And just for your reference, the piece we're talking about this is Red River Avenue, First Street South, Fire Hall's right here. So here's the trail crossing. It's only really this little piece right here.
And we didn't add any bike racks or benches like we talked about for that little area to use. I mean, there's all they're doing is they're just happen to be on the road that we fixed. Or
Yeah, and so
upgraded.
it's this piece, so it's a short piece, it's 10 feet or 11 feet up here,
Yeah.
it's 30 feet in the back, so it averages out. The piece over here, this is where the trail crosses, is actually within the Second Street right-of-way, so then there was no assessment on that side.
And we talked, do we add a bench, do we add a bike rack? And we said no, unless, yeah. So I think we just wipe it off and absorb it.
Okay,
That's part of the
same thing, so we already had discussed that.
And we'll remember
huh?
that when it goes through Rockville.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, do we need a motion for this?
I'll
I
make a
suppose, huh?
motion.
Jan makes a motion, a second.
I'll second it.
Jamie, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Looks like we're good.
And just to be clear, that assessment would do the same way as the other one, where the city would absorb the full cost of that.
Correct.
If it's appropriate, Mr. Mayor, may I make a quick comment?
Keep going.
And I lead for another commitment, but thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. You are great neighbors, and I can't speak for Richmond, but I certainly can speak for Rockville. You did the right vote.
Oh, sure, Kevin bailed before he could do that.
Thank you.
I'll remind you.
All right. No, we're going to close it, I guess, huh?
Call 3 times.
Yep.
Anyone
I going to ask 3 times for questions from the audience, going once. Questions from the audience, going twice. Questions from the audience, going 3 times. I am going to close this assessment hearing at, Bridget?
7:52.
7:52 p.m. All right. The adoptions of the assessment resolution number 2016-43. The recommendation is to adopt the resolution number 2016-43, a resolution adopting the assessment for CSAH 2 reconstruction project. Looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Jamie, second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Can I just ask
Oh.
a clear question?
Yep.
Sorry.
Will that change with the adjustments we've made? Does this resolution incorporate those changes?
The resolution only has the total construction cost and the rate of interest, and it does not, it references the roll, which we will revise.
Okay.
And so when we get that revised, I will have the mayor, you've passed it, I'll have him sign it the day, so tomorrow we'll get the roll redone. It'll be signed tomorrow, and the 30 days will go from, well, it should be today because it's when you passed it, even though he
Right.
signs it tomorrow. So still go from today, but it'll be signed tomorrow
Okay.
with the correct assessment roll.
Was it
Okay.
answered?
Yes,
You're okay?
thank you.
All right. Where am I at here? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Looks like the ayes have it. Looks like we have that. All right.
Just like to thank the city, Mr. Mayor, and council. I think we had a very successful project.
Yep.
It was a lot of work to get to this point, but thank you for all of your support on it as well.
So much fun, we're gonna do it again next year, right?
Yeah. So,
Yeah, Brian, thank you. And
Thank
to you,
you.
John, too, and Pete,
John.
thank you for,
Pete,
you,
You guys all did a good
yeah.
yeah, you
It's
kept the
really
community
You
well
guys are
informed
the
and
best.
Right.
And thank you to Stearns County as well. They were also very good to work with on this project.
Well, they at least listened to our input, which
Yeah.
was,
Yes.
Yeah, I did address that.
I thank the county at the late meeting too for their help for, because when we brought up the second how that looks and everything, and the county was there, and I thank the county for helping us make it look good too, so.
yeah.
Okay, all right. Number 9,
That is me.
okay?
Recently, we had a data request for some information from the police department. And while looking at the request, I was looking to see what our policies say on the 3 required policies under the Minnesota statute. One on the data, how we collect the data and store it, data we collect on individuals, and then just how we handle public data. We don't have a policy on any of those and have never had the policy. And so I contacted Sue to get some, and she had a Buffalo one, which is, it's the standard one. Most of the cities have the same 3 policies that I gave you in your packet. And we just need to adopt them and then let the Department of Administration know that we have adopted them to be in compliance with Minnesota statutes. And then I did obviously follow the law to provide the data, even though we didn't have a policy related to the law. So that's why I brought those forward. And I think there's a couple other things that I'll be reviewing over the next couple months that also need to be revised or actually enacted. These are just ones that needed to be enacted.
Okay.
And if you want someone else other than me listed as the responsible authority or the data practice compliance officer, I'm more than willing to let you to put that job on someone else, but I will take it on as the administrator.
And that can be modified in the future,
Yep.
should you,
Should I leave, anyone can be
or should you
reappointed.
just have a change of,
Yep. If we grow
responsibility
big
here,
enough
if
and
you-
we have more staff and someone else comes in that would have that as a job due, we would change those.
Any more questions?
not for me.
Looks like we got it. Establishment, number 9 was the establishment of a municipal policy to comply with the Minnesota Data Practice Act. The recommendation is to approve enacting policies 3000 data subject policy 3100, public data policy, and 3200 ensuring security and data in compliance with the Minnesota Data Practice Act. I am looking for a motion.
I'll make that.
Jan, second.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Ayes have it. Okay,
At the last council meeting, I had hoped to have the agreements, the solar power agreement with SunShare for you to review, but it was not completed at the time, so you wanted to table it. And now Kyle's here back to talk about the agreement, and you should have a copy of it in front of you. Each property, we're gonna have 3 contracts because so many of our meters can go on each individual contract. This is the language of generally, and then the actual meters will be an addendum to this. So which ones are on which garden?
Yep. And then there's another piece to this. So this is our contract with you, should you accept it. There's a lot of other forms back end with Excel Energy. So there's actually there's 2 forms for each meter that you have. So you have about 25 meters, there's gonna be about 50 forms. So we can do that on a different date if you accept the contract. But there are 3 contracts, and due to the Public Utilities Commission, the way that they wrote the rules, you can only have a certain portion of a garden, and that's why there's 3 contracts. But they're all exactly the same, just with a different capacity attached to each one.
With those additional contract forms, is that something that has to come through the council, or is that something that the administrator can execute once we've approved the
If you
contract?
give me authority to do that, yeah, I can execute those.
Okay.
so,
And you've done your research, and this is the one you're making the recommendation to?
Right, well, mostly because they're here in the community. 3 contracts, it's a lot less paper. We are going to a, environmental improvement and didn't really want 25 contracts on paper. And it's a toss-up because they were both very similar, and it's the same pricing, it's the same contract terms for cost to the city and benefit to the city. And so basically, because they're here in our community, that was what was the tiebreaker. But if you wanted to go with Toronto, you certainly are welcome to do that as well.
What 3 gardens will we be part of, do you know?
So that's a great question. You can subscribe to a garden in your county or any adjacent county. Now, we're all full up technically on this one going in north side of town. So we have a garden up in Pope County. It's just north of Starbuck, the Glenwood area. Now, since we are in the community and we've been working really closely with you in Wakefield Township for a while, we'd like to promote you quite a bit down here just because it has that visualization for the community. And we still have capacity for residents so that they can see the in other gardens down in Wright County and whatnot. So that is available for kind of the PR side of it. You won't notice that you're part of Pope County rather than this one up here.
So Bridget, what do you want us to do?
Well, I am recommending you to approve the contracts with.
Can I ask one more question? The money we're going to save on this, can we allocate it to certain things?
I've gotten this question quite a bit before, because depending, and I think it kind of depends on the way that you have your policies written. We've done deals where we've leased land from cities to build on. They've taken that money and it was like an old water treatment facility. They allocated it to the water budget. So depending on how creative you guys get, I guess, that's up to you.
That, I think we'd have to check our policies, but that could probably be done at another meeting after we agree this, yes.
And that could probably be done at the beginning of the year when we do all the criteria for the year. If we want to make any fee changes, kind of a thing.
Oh, with the fee schedule and with all that?
That's what I'm trying to think.
Yep. Okay, perfect.
And I'll check into that to have that ready.
If there's an option that it can be designated toward.
To whatever you propose.
So you like the recommendation that you have on here? Okay, number 10 is Solar Garden Subscription Agreement for Participation in SunShare Solar Gardens. The recommendation to approve entering into a subscriber agreement with SunShare Solar Garden for solar energy bill credit. I am looking for a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Jamie, a second.
I'll second it.
Dave, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Looks like we have. The lights are getting brighter.
Well, and I do want to clarify now, do you have authority to sign these? I don't want to take up anybody's time, and since there's so much, how does that work?
Should we discuss that?
Do you have all 3 with you now?
I have the 3 contracts, but not all the forms.
Okay, so that would be an additional.
And those are the 50 forms that we could give her authority to sign.
And so just so everybody knows, one of them, it's simply a data request form from Excel that allows us to pull the specific usage on those individual meters. The second one is on that same meter, taking that meter number and assigning it to a specific garden. That's all they are. And those are forms you'll fill out regardless.
I don't even know if you need a motion. I think you can just direct me.
I was going to say, I would give direction that Bridget be responsible for executing the contracts and additional 50 pages of documentation.
Yay.
Let's do it.
I'll make it as easy as possible. And then lastly, I just want to thank you guys so much. This has been kind of a long time coming. I was working with the gentleman, I think it was Pat, over at the water treatment facility over a year ago, and it's been a long time coming. I've drive past here going to my cabin all the time since I was growing up, and I would like, if it's okay with you guys, to work with you on some PR stuff. just on the back end. With whatever you're comfortable, we'll just work on the back end with you guys. So I just want to let you know that we'll be reaching out for that sort of thing. So
Thank you.
thank you guys,
Sounds
I
good.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, number 11.
Number 11 is also administration. Every year we have to put on the delinquent utility public hearing, and so I'm just asking for you to schedule it.
Question on it? What's the last date somebody could pay that so they don't appear on the November 29th delinquent list? Would it be the
Day before?
Day before? Well, I'll send it out on that Friday before to you, and it'll be,
But it could be removed if they
it could
pay
be
it up
removed
till
if
the
they pay
hearing.
up to that day.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Schedule delinquent utilities public hearing. The recommendation to approve scheduling a public hearing for November the 29th, 2016 to certify delinquent utilities to properties with outstanding utility balances or nuisance abatements.
I'll make that motion.
Jan, second.
I'll second.
Jamie, favor?
Aye.
Aye, against? Okay, Public Works. Director report, Mr. John.
All right, now we get on to the fun stuff. I got a couple requests for you and then a bunch of updates. Number one is the purchase of a 12-foot snow pusher. I think in the packet it says blower, but it's a pusher. Ron's been looking at getting one for cleaning off Main Street as well as like the roundabouts, cul-de-sacs. It just works a lot easier with our loader. We got some estimates. The main one was from Ziegler Cat, and for a brand new one, they were like $10,500 for the pusher itself. Mississippi Topsoil has one that is only 2 years old, and they ended up getting a different loader, so it doesn't work with that one. They're willing to sell us the 12-foot pusher, a coupler, which is probably another $750 to $1,500, and then a 4-yard snow bucket for $8,500 total. And Ron and I went over and looked at it and inspected it, and it literally looks like it's 2 years old.
And it fits.
Yep. And it fits on our case, so it would come out of budget line 6611.
For the mechanically incapable in the room here, what is a snow pusher?
You see them, like when you go down St. Cloud, you'll see like a big loader in a parking lot, and it's got this big 12-foot wide blade with edges on it that it kind of catches the snow, so you can just keep pushing it instead of having to scoop it out every time with a bucket. So
They have moldboards that they push. I think that's what but it doesn't gather the snow. All the moldboards that they have that are mounted on their equipment, the snow goes off to the side, either right, left. They can't move the snow with a little bit. They can, but with a pusher, it gathers it and pushes it on one.
Yep.
So
it's a good deal.
It makes sense to me what they're doing.
And it's a super good deal that Mississippi Topsoil has one conveniently for us.
So
savings.
We need a recommendation to approve the purchase of a 12-foot snow pusher from Mississippi Topsoils for $8,500, coming from budget line 11-50-51-6611. I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Jamie, second.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
And against? Looks like you got yourself a pusher.
Awesome. The second thing was approval to apply for a competitive water grant. Chessa from Stearns County Soil and Water Conservation District, she needs approval from the council. I'm assuming, it's anytime you can get a grant, it's a great deal. But it's the same thing we've been using for the last 4+ years, I think it was. It's a 2-year grant for our crop conversion up by wells 4, 5, and 6 to reduce our nitrates. And then also the water festival for the 4th graders we put on over in Richmond at the hockey arena. It's a 50% match, $10,000 a year. So
Looks like it'll work for us, John.
yeah,
Okay.
just
Any questions from the council?
Nope.
Looking good. I guess John's looking for a recommendation to approve allowing the Public Works Department to apply for a competitive water grant from the Minnesota Department of Health. Motion?
I'll make that.
Jan, second.
I'll second it.
Dave, all in favor?
Aye.
Against?
You know, just an update on that crop conversion too, with that 5-year extension through the DNR to continue using our wells 4, 5, and 6. We felt it was necessary to keep doing the crop conversion because we're going to be continuing using 4, 5, and 6, so we don't want to run into a nitrate problem. And until we move on to the new well field, we would like to keep doing the crop conversion. And Tom Hansen's the farmer's name, and he's great to work with. He's actually even he rents some land, I believe, over by the Fraley property, and he said in the future, if it's ever a concern there as well, he's interested in doing it out there as well. So he's a great guy to work with. So
That's good. Good to hear.
some updates. Lois is putting in the paper for November 1st and 2nd. We'll be doing the hydrant flushing around town. It shouldn't take us long. I don't even know if we'll even go into the 2nd, but for sure the 1st. And then I'll contact the larger businesses, water users that will be affected by us flushing and let them know prior to as well.
This affecting school.
Yep.
You can let them know.
Oh yeah, they know. They know, and if they don't, they will be the first to let us know. No, they know. Ken, that's part of the reason why he's looking forward to retirement. No, it shouldn't be too bad. We're not going to get too crazy with the valves this fall. It's more of a winter deal, or the spring deal when I want to get crazy with the valves and working those over. So it shouldn't be too bad this fall.
John, did we have any water tainted from when we hooked up the new water pipes for Red River to residents? Was there any complaints?
Very minor. We got some, rusty water. Just call and, what do I do? Is it safe to drink? And then I just explained to him, yeah, it's safe to drink. Let your faucet run a little longer to clear out your service line. But anytime you're working older valves or whatever in town, when you're closing them and opening them, it breaks a little bit of rust free, so dirties up your water a little bit.
Is it similar to when you do the flushing? You should open a couple faucets?
Yep, open the faucet, let it run for a period of time until it clears up, and you should be good. What happens is the water rushes through so fast, it just stirs up the line, and it ends up going out. Water always goes out, so it goes to your service lines. And until you flush that out of your service line, it's going to stay there. So just flush it out until it's gone. But it's not harmful at all. It's still the same quality drinking water you get. So the ground storage tank maintenance went well. It took a little while, but the company Engineering America, the inspector there, said it was actually in really great shape for being a 88, I believe it was built. Usually he sees a lot of scaling and rust along the seams when they peel that black tar off around all the seams. This one hardly had any, so they resealed it all, and then they put another new coating over all the bolts on the inside of the panels. So they got that done on last Friday or Thursday, and then they had to disinfect it, and that's a 48-hour cure time. So we let it disinfect over the weekend. Tanya started filling it on Sunday night, and then we took a sample yesterday, and that's an 18-hour sample through Trout Wells for a back tee to make sure it's safe for drinking. And we got that result back this morning at 8:30 that it passed. So the ground storage tank is now back in line, and everybody's pressure should be back to normal.
Okay.
Went really well. I mean, we had a couple calls, concerns of why the pressure was low, but everybody got through it well. So it's kind of a big deal because when you start taking that type of pressure off people's houses, it can create problems.
I was asked this morning about it already.
Yep.
I said it should be either today or tomorrow.
Yep. Yep, so we're in the filling that right now. Or it should be almost full by now, but...
I didn't think it was that bad.
Wasn't it? I don't know.
Certain parts of town,
Certain times of day, I think, more so than others, you noticed it, but
Yep.
all in all.
The worst parts of town were right up by the ground storage tank, those few houses that are right around there, but... Also, we got approved for a source water protection grant through the Department of Health. That's for our wellhead protection plan, different things that are involved around that. So it's another grant that we've been getting the last few years. That's all I got. Any questions for me?
You got some salt.
All
We
geared
got
up
salt,
for winter,
yes.
yeah.
I think we ended up with like $200 left in the budget after we purchased the salt, so pretty good estimate.
But it's full.
Yeah.
So the muskrats aren't building piles, but some old guy came to the store and he says it's going to be an ugly winter. They're dumping salt in that shed like crazy, he says.
Well, we gotta be prepared.
Let's hope you don't need it, huh?
Yeah.
All right, thank you, John. I guess, Brian, you're back on board again.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I'll try to keep this one shorter. Red River Avenue, obviously, you've seen it's open to traffic. I think it's functioning well. Mainly the work that's left is working on the granite around the trees, and the benches are going to be cut down a little. They're a little tall. They were not intended to be that tall. So there's going to be some modifications to those. And then otherwise just clean up and granite work for now. The fence, well, I think you'd asked Jamie, could be later November, depending on how things go with the fabrication. If it gets too late, we're just going to push it till first thing in the spring, and the plants won't go in until spring anyways.
Do they haul the benches out to cut them, or will they cut them on site?
Last I heard, they're going to try to cut them on site, but that's what I heard. There wasn't a final plan yet.
That'd be interesting.
About 7 inches.
Yeah, they are a little tall, and I heard some complaints about that too.
Yeah, so that's being taken care of. So.
And the signs, you're working on the signs?
Working on the
Yeah, I
signs.
had a conversation with Brian Klemke from the county today, and he was talking with Jody Tyke, and we're gonna make something work there.
Otherwise, that's all I have for Red River. If there's any other questions on it.
Lots of good compliments on it.
Yeah, lots of
That's nice to
compliments.
hear.
Compliments, so good job.
I really like the definition of the lanes. People not sneaking around you on the right when you're...
And as a reminder that, as it always was, but just a reminder that you cannot pass on the right, even if there's no... we added turn lanes in a lot of the project. There are not turn lanes everywhere just because it didn't necessitate it, but you still cannot pass on the right.
I see some of them still have a little issue with left turn flashing orange. It's a little bit, because I was down last couple of days, and they kind of, so.
Yeah, and
As soon
those
as
are,
they understand that.
Yeah, and those are newer. That's a newer thing from the Minnesota Department of Transportation. It's the same as that used to be the left turn yield on green, but they found it safer because it's people used to see the green ball and assume they had the right of way and could turn, and they really didn't. So it's essentially the same thing. So anytime if it's in a solid phase on the left turn, so if it's a solid red, yellow, or green, it acts like a normal left turn. If it's flashing, it means you can go, but you have to yield.
Yeah, it's just something new, because I saw a car in front of me, you can go, there's nobody coming.
Also, if you get a second, they're working on, they got the east side of the bridge, the Brewery Creek, the fencing done there, and they'll be working on the west side, I believe, tomorrow, but I'm glad we definitely went with the new fence there. It looks beautiful, so.
Good.
Get a chance to check that out, check it out.
Yeah, and it's kind of fun to drive at night. I think the lighting turned out really nice.
It did. The striping is so bright.
Till the first salt gets on it.
First plow gets on it.
Start scraping over the bit.
All right, Main Street, we have the improvement hearing set for November 15th at the council meeting. So that'll be, like we've done before, a presentation about the project, and then adopting the preliminary assessments. And then if that's all in order, then it would be ordering the improvements so we could go ahead and start doing the plans and specs in anticipation of bidding early 2017. And then the southwest infiltration is supposed to start this Thursday. We had a delay from the contractor. It was supposed to have started last week. Wasn't much we could do, so it's going to start this week.
Is that what all those black pipes up at the skating rink are for?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're storing material up there.
Gotcha.
And it should take about how long?
They figured about 2 weeks.
And last I talked to Jeff Kramer, he said they're gonna try to get 2 crews in at once and get it done in a week.
Okay.
Which will be good, because our only concern is we're starting to run out of, we're pushing our luck with nice weather.
Yeah, we are.
So, that's all the updates I have.
Cool.
We're good? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
City Administrator report.
Just wanted to give you an update from that library meeting I went to with the executive director last week. There were 15 or so other cities there, also having similar concerns that we had about the contract. It was kind of drafted one-sided, and some things were missing in it that our city attorney thought should be in there, who also happens to be the city attorney of a couple other cities that have libraries. The executive director realized that for several years, decades even, that there was no real communication between the library board and the cities, and they're trying to rectify that. And so she took all the comments and drafted up a new version that she hadn't given to her, to the council for the library or even the board. I was hoping that she would give her version to us in an electronic version to give to you, and to make sure she made all the corrections we discussed at the meeting. I got it late this afternoon. I haven't even been able to verify it. But she's taking that to the board this week. They have their, or no, November 15th is their next meeting that she's taking it to have them look at. They had wanted a answer by every city by the end of 2016, December of 2016, and they're hoping to push that back. They have a library assessment. We know that we don't meet what they think our library should be in size and space and access. And so upon signing that, and we have the space study going and working with that, my concern, and there's another city in the same boat that knows that, but we have so many steps to take first to get to the library. If it's a whole new location after the space study, or if it's a remodel of this, moving people out, those things have to, everything has a timeline to play. That I wanted to make sure, and this other city, I believe it was Howard Lake, wanted to make sure that they understand our timeline might not be theirs. But all in all, it was a really good discussion. I think it's moving in the right direction, the way the library is going to start communicating to the cities, and hopefully be more of a collaboration. And I'll keep you posted on what's going on with that. Okay. And that's all I have.
Okay. List of bills and additions. And we've looked at them all, and Fran always says, let's pay our bills. I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Amy, a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Favor?
Aye.
Aye. Against? Said we're going to pay. Actually, I think we always pay them already, right? No. Okay. General questions and comments from the city council. Do you want to start?
I got nothing.
Nothing?
Got nothing.
Got nothing? Jan, got nothing? Nothing
Get out
here
and vote.
either? Get in.
Yeah, get out and vote.
Get out and vote.
And you don't have nothing?
Okay.
Okay. Then number 17.
I'll make that motion.
Jan, a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Favor?
Aye.
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 Looks like we have a meeting done and over.